As so often in our learning, we find in the Gemara, we learn the nuanced differences between ideas. We tend to lump ideas together and to treat ideas in a very blunt sort of a way, instead of understanding them in a sharp way and understanding the differences. And in Gemara and Halacha, it's very, very important to be able to see clearly, to see with clear definition. And we see that today, understanding the difference between the idea of being connected to something or to someone and being joined with something or someone, or be joined to someone or something. To have a connection or to be part of it. It's not the same thing. Are you connected or are you part of it? And we'll see that when two things are connected, each one retains their own identity. I have a connection with you. I'm me, you're you, and we have a connection together. But when we're joined, we've created something new. Then the two of us have created something that is different. In the case of connection, the chomer is separate. You remember we've talked about chomer and tzura, the substance and the form. The substance is separate. One is one thing, one is the other thing, one person and another person, but they're joined to create a new concept. So you could have different people become members of a club, they become members of a shul. Each one is still an individual in their own right. The chomer doesn't come together, the substance doesn't come together, but they create a new design, a tzura. There's a design of a community, there's a design of a shul. But when people become joined, the chomer changes. Then the two people or the two things become one new thing. The actual object changes and becomes one. And we'll look at that more deeply and understand its implications in daily life. Connected or joined, kli מצרף tznan, in Menachos Daf Daled Amud Aleph. So we need a little bit of background information to understand this piece of Gemara. The background information, firstly, are some psukim in Parshas Emor, where the Torah tells us that a kohen who becomes tameh is not allowed to eat or even touch kodshim. The truma he can't touch, and so on. What does he have to do? He has to bring a korban, he has to go to the mikveh, and there's one other thing he needs. It's not enough to bring his korban, it's not enough to go to the mikveh, to wash himself in the waters of the mikveh. He needs uva hashemesh v'taher. He needs the sun to set on him. And only after that does he become ta'avachar, and after the sunset, yochal min ha'kodoshim, then he can eat from kodshim. And we've got the first Mishnah in Shas. The first Mishnah in Brochus talks about me'emetai korin shema ba'arvin. When do you say Kriyat Shema at night? When are you allowed to say Shema? Misha'a she'akohanim nichnasim le'echol b'trumatam. The Torah says the sun must set before you can eat truma, so that's the time you can say Kriya Shema as well from that time. And the Gemara says, but then why not just say the sunset? And the Gemara says, because it comes to teach us. We learn in the very first Mishnah of Shas. Who would have thought that this is where Rabbi Yehuda Anosi chose to begin the Talmud with this halacha? What does it come to teach us? That bi'at shimsho ma'akvato melechol bitruma ve'in kaparato me'akvato melechol bitruma. What's holding him back from eating truma? This kohen became tameh and he can't participate in the meal. He can't sit with the family and have the truma. Why? Because he's tameh. What does he have to do? Bring a korban? Not enough. Go to the mikveh? Not enough. He's got to wait for Shkia, for the sunset. And the Rambam paskins, as the other Rishonim, that it doesn't mean the beginning of sunset, it means the end of sunset, which is Yetziat Shlosha Kochavim Beinonim, when three medium-sized stars are visible in the sky. It's the same time as Motzei Shabbos, the same time that Shabbos comes out. And the first Mishnah of the Talmud teaches us that you need to be able to start a new day, to leave your tum'ah behind, to leave your contamination behind. It's not good enough to go through ritual. You also have to start a new day. And that's one of the beauties of starting a new day. You can leave stuff behind. And you don't leave stuff behind when you wake up in the morning. That's too late. The time to leave your baggage behind is when the sun sets. That's what a sunset is. You watch the sun setting, you watch the stars coming out, you say, Kriya Shema, it's a new day. It's a new start. That's how our evenings are a new start. And then you go to sleep to prepare for the next day. And when you wake up already, you're already into the next day, and then things go forward. That's how Shas starts. Now that brings us to a Mishnah in Chagiga. It's interesting, when you learn in depth, you cover a lot of bekius, you cover a lot of breadth as well. although we're only learning a couple of lines in Menachos Daf Chaf Daled, but we're learning a few psukim in Vayikra, we're learning a Mishnah in Brochus, we're learning some Gemara in Brochus, we're learning a Mishnah in Chagiga. We're all over, we bring it all together. That's how the Gemara is constructed, that you don't need to learn Bikiyus. If you learn Iyun, when you've done a few Masechtas, you've done most of Shas. Because if you've looked up, every time Tosfos quotes a Gemara, you learn that Gemara. Every time the Gemara references another Gemara, you learn that Gemara. By the time you've done a few Masechtas, you've touched the whole of Shas. And you know those few Masechtas very well, and you're familiar with many, many other things as well. The Mishnah says in Chagiga, Hakli mitzaref mashe betocho lekodesh. Explains Rashi, Chatichot ochlin harbe bikli echad. You've got lots of different pieces of food in one utensil. And somebody who's tameh, so a kohen, let's say there's just different pieces of truma in a bowl, and the kohen who's not yet tahor, he's still waiting for the sun to set, touches one of those pieces. Hakli metzarfan liot kulan chaticha achat. The utensil joins them together to make them all one piece. V'nitzmu kulam, they're all tameh. So now no Kohen can eat any of them because the Kohen who was contaminated touched one of the pieces, but the piece was in a bowl together with other pieces, and the bowl connects them all together. So we're going to go deeper into that idea of connection. Ask Gemara. Ki salik Rav Kahana, when Rav Kahana went on Aliyah, he went on Aliyah a few times. Ashkich, like many people do here. We've got people in Ranana also who've come on Aliyah a few times. Ashkechina lebnei Rabbi Chia de Yatvik v'Kamri. He found Rabbi Chia's sons who were learning in the Beis HaMedrash, and they were asking the following question: Isaron shechilku, an isaron of mincha. Isaron is the measure for the mincha that was divided into two. So they were making a korban mincha. They separated the flour into two lots, into two pieces. V'hinicho beviso, and they put it in a basin. V'nagat tibul yom be'echad mehen. And a kohen who was tameh and is waiting for the sunset touches one of the isronot. Well, you'll say we've already learned in Chagiga, the kli connects them all together. Not so simple, says the sons of Rabbi Chia. Yes, I know that Mishnah in Chagiga, that the utensil connects them. Is that only if they're touching? But if they're not touching, then the kli does not unite them? Or maybe it makes a difference. Even if they're not touching, the kli doesn't unite them. And it's not just a technical question, it's a deep halachic question that gets to the essence of, as you'll see, of two important ideas that sound the same but are different. Amar lehu ihu, he answered them, he said Rav Kahana, what are you arguing about? Mitan kli mechaber, kli metzaref tnan. What does it say? Look at the word in the Mishnah. You learn from these Amoraim how to learn a Mishnah. Look at the words carefully. It says mechaber, it doesn't say mechaber, it says metzaref. In English, you would use the same word. The utensil joins them, and then you wouldn't understand the Gemara. So you've got to translate it differently. That's why I've translated it. Are you connected or are you joined? Chibur is join. Tziruf is connect. Says Rav Kahana, it doesn't say it joins, it says it connects. And that means koldu, even if they're not touching. How does that work? Rashi explains magnificently. Let's do the second Rashi that I quote. Bitnan kli mechaber, itana kli mechaber. Now, just as Rav Kahana learns the Mishnah so carefully to understand the words, we have to learn Rashi equally carefully to understand Rashi's words. Otherwise, we don't get the precious Matmonim. If the kli is, if it would have said mechaber, it joins, have a mashma denagi hadadi, then I would have understood they are already connected, and the kli, the utensil, takes them one step more intimate. They were touching. They were just connected. So touching creates connection. If they're connected and they're in one utensil, the utensil transforms connection into joining. And then the kli would make them one and make them. That would be if it said mechaber. V'im nitmazeh, nitmazeh. And if one got tomei, the other one got tomei. Aval mitzaref, mashma de'en nogin. But the fact that it says mitzaref, that means the final outcome is only connection, not joining. So you've only come up one level. The first way, if it would have said chibur, you come two levels. They're connected because they're touching. And they're joined because these two touching pieces are in one utensil. But it doesn't say that. It says the final one is joining, is only connecting. That means ein nogin, v'zeh mitzarfan lihiyot echad ki'ilu hem nogin. So they're not touching, and what does the kli do? It takes them up one level. It makes them from not connected to connected. So again, what the kli does, as Rashi explains our Gemara, is it takes the connection one level up. If they're already connected, meaning they're touching each other, then the common utensil, the common kli, makes them joined. If they're not touching each other, then the kli can only make them connected but not joined. And therefore they're connected, mitzaref and liot echad ki'ilu hem nogin. And it's as if they're touching one another, and therefore the tumah can be transmitted. And the Tosfos in Chulin that I quote here makes very clear that negia alone does not create chibur. And that's in trying to understand that Tosfos and understanding that Rashi is where I came to go much more deeply into this difference between chibur and tziruf, between negia and chibur. So what does the kli do? The kli makes them as if they're nog'in, as if they're touching. But touching, said Rashi, is only a tziruf. It's not a chibur. If they're touching, then you can have a chibur. But if they're not touching, then all that the kli does is makes them mitztarfim, they join together. So what is the difference between tziruf and chibur? The Gemara says in Brachas, Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, in Daf Nun Hey, Yodea haya Betzalel letzaref otiyot shenivru ben shamayim v'aretz. Betzalel knew how to connect the letters through which Hashem created heaven and earth. So what did he do with those letters? He put them in the right sequence. He connected them one to the other. Does that mean it now became a jumble of a new thing? No, they're still separate letters, but the letters are in the order that Hashem put them in order to create the Shem HaMefurash, Hashem's special name by which he created the Torah and the world. He knew how to put those letters together. So Letzaref is to put things together in a way that gives them meaning. And that's what he was able to do. But chibur is different. It's interesting, the word letzaref, we don't find it, when letzaref is in Tanakh, it always means to refine. It doesn't mean to join. It's only in Mishnaic Hebrew that letzaref is used as a form of joining, as we've said here. But chibur is different. Chibur means connection. And tziruf, we talked the other day about the difference between transaction and covenant and bris. The fact that a transaction connects people, but what joins people? And I think what joins people is not transaction. What joins people is investment. If you say, are you connected to the store in Achuza Street? You say, yes, I buy my vegetables from that store. I have a connection with them. Are you joined to them? Are you part of them? No, I'm not. How would you become part of them? I'm an investor. I own part of it. You're a partner, you're an investor, that's different. Chibur means I've invested in the connection. Connection means there's been a transaction. Two pieces are touching each other, that's a connection. But they're in a basin together, they're touching each other in the basin together, that's chibur. And the Mishnah says, Aseh lecha rav uknei lecha chaver. Why doesn't the Mishnah say, Aseh lecha rav v'chaver? You should have a rav and a chaver. The Mishnah is so careful with words. What's Aseh lecha rav? Because to make a Rav, you don't need the investment. You need to learn, you need to decide who's your Rav, and you need to learn from your Rav. But a Chaver is joining. Chaver is Chibur, is creating one thing. That's different. Kanei, you've got to invest. Kanei doesn't mean acquire. Kanei is not a transaction. Kanei is investment. If you remember the first shir in Kiddushin, Ha'isha nikneit, b'shlosha drachim, there are three ways that a woman can be invested in, we learned. It's not a transaction. You don't buy women. You invest in a wife. and there are three different channels through which to invest in a wife, that creates chibur. That creates a oneness that doesn't then break up again into two. It's a new unit. It's a completely new unit. We say that Bezalel was mitzaref otiyot. He connected letters. But when somebody writes a book, what do we call it? It's a chibur. It's different. Now it's a chibur. It's putting letters together and then the letters come apart again. That's litzaref. But to create a new concept, if you now take the letters out, there's no chibur. There's nothing there. Chibur is a whole new concept. It's not just the design that's different, the thing is different. This is no longer a bunch of letters. This is now a book. This is now a chibur. This is something completely different. And so we need to understand when we think about these words to question ourselves. Am I connected to my shul or am I part of my shul? What would the difference be? Transaction, I pay my fees every year, that's connected. I'm a member. I'm part of the shul means I'm invested in the shul. I make a difference in the shul. Am I connected to my wife or am I invested in my wife? Is there a chibur or is there a tziruf? Are we connected or are we joined? How much am I investing? In anything that we're looking at, am I investing in the Torah? Or am I just going to have a connection to the Torah? Am I actually investing? Always question ourselves. Is this a connection or is this a join? That we really are part of something bigger, part of something that we've invested in and made our own. All of that through understanding the words in Rashi and in Tosfos, clearly identifying the difference which the Gemara makes, Rav Kahana makes over here, the difference between the word lechaber and letzaref, two completely different concepts that on the surface appear the same, but in their essential meaning are very different.